Okay, so welcome everyone. Welcome to the Storytelling Association of California genre series. As some of you know, my name is Claire Hennessy and I'm from 6 Feet Apart Productions. And I'm going to be your MC for the evening. And the lovely Judy Clapper is your tech host. Now, for those of you who don't know about this, I'm sure most of you do, SAC's genre series is where tellers come from various storytelling swap groups from all around California and actually overseas. We've got somebody coming from India this evening, and it's on the third Wednesday of every month, and all the tellers have been nominated by their swap group leaders, and then each month there's a different genre. And tonight we've got a show when all the stories are sacred and inspirational stories. So that's going to be nice. Some of them may be personal, some may be traditional. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, we're so happy that you're all here and really, really grateful for the support. Please put your comments in the Zoom chat for the tellers, but if you can maybe wait till the end of each story, because sometimes, particularly if people are on a phone, the chat window pops up and it can be a little distracting. But after each story, it will be lovely if you want to send them some love. Now, if you yourself are interested in telling at one of these genre series, you can do that. Just go to SAC's website, which is StorySAC, SAAC, storysac.org. I'm sure Judy will put the website in the chat at some point. And then you can go and see what upcoming shows. You can see on this graphic there that we've got the next one in January is going to be Tall Tales. And they go right up until June next year, which I have to say is pretty impressive and organised by Ed Lewis, whose baby this is. Okay, so let's get the show started. Hold on one moment for me, please. So our first teller tonight is going to be from the Contra Costa Tale Spinners, and we have the lovely Dana Sherry. Now, Dana apparently was once a respectable historian of Russia until she turned to a life of storytelling, like most of us have, and now we're living in the shadows. She tells traditional tales from Central Asia, the Caucasus, and beyond into the US and the former Soviet Union. Her latest project focuses on the life of saints and a treasure trove of Catholic folk tales that are as wild and unexpected as any fairy tale. So let's welcome Dana to our stage. Hi, Dana.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for everyone for joining us tonight.
Pleasure. Now, the question I asked everybody is, what's your favorite seasonal snack to get us in the holiday mood of eating? So, Dana, tell us what yours is.
Well, today my favorite holiday snack is peppermint fudge made by my younger son. Really, anything with sugar will work, but today that's been very good and is definitely my favorite tonight.
Oh, well, how fantastic. I'm not supposed to be eating sugar at the moment, so that's going to be for me. Lovely. Okay, Dana, I'm going to let you go now, and we're going to listen to Dana's story, which, hold on one second, and I will tell you the name of it. It's called Mud and Straw, a story of Saint Walata Petros. I probably said that really badly. Off you go, Dana. The stage is yours.
Thank you. So, yeah, tonight I want to tell you an episode from the life of Saint Walata Petros, who was a woman who lived in Ethiopia. She was born in 1592. And there are lots and lots and lots of stories about her, but the one I want to share tonight is one that took place when she was a young woman. So she already there was something about her. People could see that she had this light, that she had this calling. And so she had some followers, some disciples who had gone with her to live outside of a monastic community. And so this morning, as most mornings, Walata Petros went out and she lifted out her arms in prayer. But today, as she was praying, Jesus Christ came and took her hand in his, and he said, "My daughter, you and your followers, you're living outside this community and you're not part of its life. And that is because this is not the path that is laid before you. You are called to go and found 7 new communities." And she said, "How can this be? I'm I'm made from dust. I'm a creature of mud. I can't possibly do something like that. And Jesus answered, my daughter, even mud, when it is mixed with straw, is strong enough to hold the grain. Go, I will be with you, and you will found the communities. And this is part where if we were all in person, I'd have you help me with it. And we have to be on mute, but if you want to help, you can. And it goes, and he said, go. And she said, no. And he said, go. And she said, no. And he said, go. And she said, no. And he said, look. And the sky was filled with doves, and they came down and they landed on Walata Petros, and they covered her from her feet to the top of her head. And Jesus said, these are my pure doves that I entrust to you, and I promise that not one of them will be lost. Walata Petros looked at him, and she shook her hands, and the doves flew away. And she said, they will be lost. I cannot even save myself. I will not be able to keep them safe. And so Walata Petros turned, and she walked away, and Jesus vanished. But the next morning, she was out at prayer again with her arms stretched out, and Jesus came back again. And he said, Walata Petros, I have told you, you are called to found 7 communities. And he said, go. And she said, nope. And he said, go. And she said, no. And he said, go. And she said, no. And he said, look. And he set a golden basket before her, filled with vessels, with bottles made of crystal and of glass. And he said, these are my precious vessels. I entrust them to you, and I promise not one will be lost. And she said, no. And he said, if you will not believe me, I will send a lion, hungry and fierce, among your disciples, and then you will see. And with that, he vanished. And a shriek came up from the houses where the disciples were, and they came running in fear, for there was, in fact, a lion, hungry and fierce. And they pressed around Walata Petros. They held her so tight she thought they would squeeze her to death. And she said, what happened? And they said, there's a lion, it's terrible, we're going to die. And she said, what are you doing? What do you think you are? Do you think that you're going to live forever? Do you think that these things happen? And just go. And they said no. And she said go. And they said no. And she said go. And they said no. And she said, oh. And she said, beloveds, we cannot control what happens in the world, but go forth and do not fear. For wherever you go, God is with you, and you will not be lost. So the disciples went, and Walata Petros stood alone, waiting. And Jesus came, and he said, my daughter, you are called to found 7 communities, and I promise I will be with you, and not one soul will be lost. And she said, let it be with me as you have said. And so she went out, and through many other adventures, she did found the 7 communities. And her story, we know it's true, because she told all these things to her friend, to her sister, Eta Christos. And she told it to her disciple, and her disciple told it to a storyteller. And we know the storytellers always tell the truth. And she told him to write it down so that it would go out and reach all of those who had not yet heard her story, and so that Walata Petros would be with all of us. And so from that day to this, Her story has gone forward. And if, when the time comes that you feel that you're asked to do something that is beyond your strength, know that as you feel this, you are not alone. And know as you find the courage to set forth and give it a try anyway, you're not alone then either. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was a lovely story. Thank you, Dana. That was fabulous. If everybody, if you, in between storytellers, if people want to unmute and clap, you can do that. Just make sure you mute yourself again. Anyway, Dana, thank you so much. That was great. Lovely. Now, on to our next storyteller. Now, sadly, our second storyteller has having some technical difficulties over in India. So she's hoping to join us, but she will be a little bit later. So we're going to move everybody up a place. And so our next storyteller is going to be the wonderful Angela Lloyd. And she's coming to us from the Inland Valley Storytellers down in LA. So hi, Angela. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Good. So
Lovely, lovely story, Dana.
it
Wonderful.
was beautiful, wasn't it? What a nice way to start the show. So Angela is a unique performer of the National Storytelling Circuit. She's been featured everywhere. She was featured on numerous times at the Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee, and regularly appears at other festivals and theatres all across the country. She's amazing. She's an absolute virtuoso on the washboard. She can sing, she can dance, she does her performances a whimsical braid of poetry, story, and song. She plays on the auto harp. She's a tenor guitar, spoon, and bell. Honestly, what doesn't she do? So, Angela, the very talented Angela, how are you? And let's give you the same question. What is your favorite holiday snack?
Well, I'll admit my first thought was that rice Chex mix that used to have the recipe on the back of corn Chex, rice Chex, wheat Chex, and then peanuts, soy sauce. And I don't know, Claire, if you've ever had that.
No,
Um,
absolutely haven't.
my sister-in-law used to make it, and I would just eat buckets of it when I was visiting my brother and his family. Get into bed with a bowl of it. But my second thought was to say pierogi, which are small pies. They could have potato in them or meat. And so I really do like those. But I haven't had those for years. So it's a good fantasy
No, I
snack.
have heard of those.
Yeah. So,
Lovely.
okay.
That's yummy anyway.
So
Glad I
here's,
ate for you.
yeah. So here's the two there. I have two stories, and here's the first one. So a long ago, very very long ago, there was a village where there were families and workers and makers and carpenters and all walks of life lived in this village. And there lived there in that place a rabbi. And the rabbi had become very accustomed to the families, the children, the teachers, the electricians, everybody. It was not uncommon if someone had a question or a problem or a struggle or a something they were trying to work out, they would often go to the rabbi. And no matter what anybody brought to him, he always had a story for them. He had an answer. He had a something that would move them forward, and it was often in the form of a story. Now, there was a young man that had grown up in that place, and he had gone away and moved away and gone to school and now had come back. And so he was new to this rabbi. And when he had been there a few weeks, he started hearing stories about him and how skilled he was at helping his community. So one morning, this young fellow was out walking and he saw up ahead the rabbi. And the rabbi would often went out early, loved to be out in that fresh morning air, sort of feel the temperature of the day. And this young man caught up to the rabbi and fell into step with him. And they started to chat and visit. And after a bit, the young man says, "You know, I hear that you always have the just right answer for no matter what anyone brings to you. And I was wondering, how do you do it? How do you do it?" And the rabbi walked a little bit and didn't say anything. And he said, "Well, let me tell you a story." And he continued in this way. There was once long ago, long before now, an archer, a fellow who was very skilled with his bow and arrow, so skilled that any time he pulled that string back and he let an arrow go, he always hit the center of the target. And this archer was one day walking out away from the village, and he came upon an odd sight. There was a home, a two-story house, there was a long fence, and there was a barn. And as the archer drew close, he noticed there were targets painted all along the fence. And as he drew very close, he noticed that the only holes in the targets were dead center. So that made him very curious. And he looked around to see if anybody was out and about. Nobody was out. And so he went up to the house and knocked on the door. And a woman answered the door after a bit, and she was dusting flour off of her hands and against her apron. And the archer said, "Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I wanted to ask," he said, "I noticed the targets that are on the fence, and I was wondering if the person who works with bow and arrow here, do they live here, or was that something before you moved here?" And the woman said, "Oh, just a minute." And she left the door open, and then came back in a few minutes with her hand on the back of a young boy, a red-haired boy with this glimmer in his eye, this sparkle in his eye. And she said, "This is my son, and that is his work." And the archer looked at the boy and he said, "Oh, do you want to go for a walk?" And the boy said, "Sure, sure, let's go." And so out they went, and they went along the fence. And the archer said, "Is this your work?" And the boy said, "Yes." He said, "Yep, that's mine." And he said, "Well, how is your practice so magnificent, so fine, so center, so right in the middle?" And the boy said, "Oh, well, this is what I do." He said, "I always first stand with my back against the fence. And then I take this many steps away. I turn around. I pull my arrow, place it in my bow. I pull it back and I shoot it at the fence. And then I go to the barn and I get the paint and I paint the target around the arrow." And the archer said, "Oh," he said, "so, oh, that's how you do it." The boy said, "Yes." And the rabbi, walking with the young man in the village, said, "That's what I do. Someone comes to me with a question or a challenge or a struggle, and I listen. And then I paint my story around it." So I heard that story from Steve Sandfield. May his memory be a blessing. He was the artistic director of the Sierra Storytelling Festival. And he was a wonderful storyteller and poet and teacher and friend. And I heard him tell that many, many years ago. And I've just always loved the images in that story. Now, the second story I have was one that was developed in a classroom in the Bay Area at the Pacific School of Religion in a course around biblical humor. And this story was told to me by Margie Brown, who was the teacher of that course. And this story, like, it came out of that classroom, but I like to think of it as really starting in that old times. And that story, it's based on a story we've been telling for years. And it has passed through many people. So you will hear references across the ages in it. And it goes like this. It was January. It was the day after the three kings arrived to see the baby. And now it was late afternoon on the next day. And Mary and Joseph and the baby were all sleeping. They were pooped. They were taking a nap. And the three kings were back up on their camels, and they were at the crossroads, and they were trying to refold that star map. The shepherds had gone into town to get something cool to drink, maybe ice cream. And the angels had moved to another barn. I say another just because there was a barn in the other story. But they had moved to a tall barn, and they were in process of putting away that bright, brilliant star, because they weren't going to be using it for a while. And so many of the angels were balanced delicately on a very rickety ladder going up into the high rafters of this barn. And the head angel was on the floor of the barn, and he pulled a feather from his wing, picked his teeth, and said, "I'm going off for a cup of coffee, and when I get back, I want that star up there." And they all said, "Okay, boss." And the head angel left. And the other angels, they were now balancing with this very bulky, very bright star and passing it up to each other, when all of a sudden it slipped out of their hands, and it fell and tumbled, and it smashed into smithereens, hundreds and hundreds of tiny pieces of light on the floor of the barn. And the angels thought, "Oh boy, man, we are really gonna get it now. Oi, 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 oi." And they then started to think how to collect it, and then what to do. Maybe hide it somewhere, or them, or the pieces, or how to rescue it, how to redeem it, how to raise those pieces of light. And they finally decided that they would hide each one of those tiny pieces of light in the eyes of every newborn child. This was because every child is a gift. Every child is valued, worthy, trusty, resourceful. And if ever you've been visiting with a friend and you looked in their eyes, surely you have seen that tiny little glimmer of light. It comes from that night so long ago, when the angels let go. And that's it. And may you have a lovely season and have a chance to see light in your friends' eyes and for them to see the light in yours. Thank you.
Oh. Yay. Thank you, Angela. That was a lovely pairing of stories. I particularly like the target. I'm going to I'm going to remember that and try and practice that somewhere in my life. That's a brilliant thing to do. But I love that last story about the light as well. Shame the children have to grow up, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Now we have had Ramya come in from India, but she's going to just take a breath or two. So we will still move up our storytellers. So our next storyteller is going to be Camille Miller, and she's from the Story Masters of Los Angeles. So another Southern Californian for us. Hello, Camille.
What's up?
Now, Camille is a poet, a storyteller, and a two-time district champion Toastmaster, so she's pretty good. She shares her engaging stories with audiences and with the storytelling community at large, churches, and even detention centres. She's wacky, she's quirky, she's witty, and she's joyful. And she spends her days apparently peeking into bushes and climbing over clouds in the endless pursuit of the next great story. She's so lovely. So welcome, Camille.
Thank you.
Hi. Now, the same question to you. What's your favourite seasonal snack?
My favorite seasonal snack is fried chicken and chocolate cream pie, but not in that order.
Yeah, that would be a little odd, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But lovely. That sounds like plenty of carbs. Wonderful. That's what we all need, isn't it? Now, lovely. So I'm going to pass over to Camille, who's going to tell her story called Church and Chewing Gum. So off you go, Camille.
I was born on a wooden church pew. It's probably why my back hurts. Family squeezed in so tight that we rubbed shoulders and elbows and thighs. Church mothers dressed in Sunday white with wide-brimmed hats decorated the church. They sat self-importantly on the front pew because, well, that's where church mothers sit, and no one dared ask why. I tried my best to avoid them. If a church mother spoke to you, you were likely in for a scolding. Stop that running, child. Pull your dress down, girl. Your knees are showing. Stop chewing that gum. You look like a cow with no teeth. In my little girl thoughts, I hope that God wasn't a church mother. If he was, I didn't stand a chance in hell of getting into heaven. Now, church always started with a choir marching down the aisle. The robes swung back and forth like butterfly wings. With little kid excitement, my eyes would widen in anticipation. The clanging of the tamarines, the clapping of the hands, and the stomping of the feet vibrated from wall to wall throughout the building. And the procession always began with the same song. We are soldiers in the army. We have to fight, although we have to die. We have to hold up the blood-stained banner. We have to hold it up until we die. I never quite understood that song back then, but today the passion and the purity of the words take on a whole new meaning. Now, worship in a black church is like an aerobic workout. There's waving of the hands and clapping and old folks banging their canes on the wooden floors. I would crawl inside of the sound and play patty cake with all of the melodies. And sometimes some of the women would catch the spirit and spin round and round like a washing machine on spin cycle and dance themselves right out of their wigs. And the ushers would rush over with those handheld fans that advertise funeral homes and furiously fan them until they were able to stumble back to their pew. I couldn't help but giggle a little, and Mom would lean over and give me the look. No one was ashamed to talk about Jesus. He was our rescuer from slavery day to present day. He was the hero of every anthem. We sang songs by James Cleveland. God is the joy and the strength of my life. He removes all pain, misery, and strife. Walter Hawkins. I'm going up yonder, going up yonder. I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord. And of course, oh, happy day. Talking about a happy day when Jesus washed. He washed my sins away. Oh, happy day. My little girl hands would smack together and squeeze out the words with the rest of the congregation. And when the preacher came to the pulpit, it was like having a conversation. The sermons are punctuated with groans and prolonged syllables and statements like, y'all don't hear me now, and is there anybody in here that knows what I'm talking about? We talk back. Shouts of amen and preach, pastor, seasoned the sermon. Once, the preacher was pretending to be Moses receiving the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai and tried to stand on top of the lectern. Well, he successfully got one leg on top and wobbled back and forth like a young child riding a bike for the first time. At about the 3rd commandment, he toppled backward, bounced on his bottom, and slid across the floor like grease on a griddle. And I think that even Moses was laughing. Back then, church was more exciting than TV, except for Good Times and the Carol Burnett Show, because those were 2 of my favorite shows. And I knew that it was going to be a super Sunday when I caught that soulful scent of chicken grease and collard greens. We always stayed for the chicken dinners, and of course, the camaraderie. There was so much movement in life. We were free from our troubles, if only for a few hours a week. When I was 17, our house burned down and there was no one from the church to help. Heartbroken, my world turned from color to black and white. And I was so young back then, I thought that God and church people were one and the same. And if they didn't want me, then I didn't want them either. I took off running with my short skirts and my chewing gum. Well, last month, by invitation of a friend, I was invited back to Black church. And there were no church mothers on the front row, but the sound was the same. Something erupted inside of me. It was like all the generations inside of my DNA began to dance. And the earnest sound of desperation and freedom pranced up and down the aisle. I was intoxicated and marinated in the sound. And it wasn't long before I found myself swaying to the music and lifting my hands. And in moments like those, it feels like God Himself has stepped down out of heaven and joined in the celebration. And when that feeling comes over me, I'm no longer afraid of fear or failure or going to hell. And in some strange way, it feels like God is celebrating me too, despite my chewing gum. Maybe the church mothers were wrong. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe, just maybe, I don't have to do everything right to be enjoyed by God. God is love, but I've allowed life and experience and church mothers to distort the true definition of love. And now that I'm older, I'm learning that love can involve discipline or even anger. I've been angry at friends and family more times than you could shake a stick at, but that doesn't mean that I've stopped loving them. And standing in that church, all sweaty from clapping and dancing, made me think this is where I should be. Perhaps it's where I should have been all along.
Thank you, Camille. That was a great story. That was really uplifting. Thank you. Made me want to go and to church with all that wonderful singing. If you admire anybody who can sing, because I can't hold a tune. Thank you. That was lovely. And I'm sorry your house burned down. Okay, so thank you. So we're going to go on to our next storyteller, who comes from the Tell Me a Story swap, and her name is Brenda Haynes. So we're bringing Brenda up. Brenda is a retired educator. She's a grandmother. She's a weekend pickleball warrior. I want to try pickleball, and comes from a family of 12. Just shocking to even have that many. I can't imagine it. I've got 2 and it's just hideous. Now, she says storytelling gives her a chance to tell her side of the story, which is really good, about what she thinks really happened. Now, she currently lives in LA, where she grew up, and remembers the days when if a boy really liked a girl, he'd carry her books after school all the way to her front door. Oh, that's so sweet. Wish they still did that, eh? She tells stories on the stage for Tales by the Sea, Jam Creative, Barbara Clark's Tell Me a Story, and various other events. So welcome, Brenda. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Lovely to see you.
Thanks.
Now tell us, what's your favorite snack of the season?
Well, I must admit that during the holiday season, I love cheese, chocolate, and champagne. It
Well,
just goes together so well, and
so
it makes the season bright.
that's absolutely fine. I don't think anybody could ever say who wouldn't like cheese, chocolate, and champagne. Fabulous. Okay, Brenda, I'm going to let you get on and tell your story, which is called The Christmas Wish. So off you go.
Right. Good evening, everybody. And my story is called The Christmas Wish. I could hear loud voices, scary arguing voices coming from downstairs. Scared, I huddled together with my brothers and sisters at the top of the stairs, crying, praying, waiting. Shh, Mama, shh, don't say anything. Just be quiet. Be invisible. That's what I always told her to do, because that's what I did. Because sometimes my father could be so mean, mean like the devil mean, hurting us and hurting Mama. And that day, just wanted him to stop. So at the top of the stairs, squeezing every ounce of my 9-year-old self, I began to pray and ask God to help us, to help Mama, to help my father not to be so mean. And God, please, Christmas is just so close. And regardless of what my father is saying, please, God, let Christmas come to our house this year. We need it so bad. We need Christmas. You see, Christmas always brought a special kind of joy and togetherness to our house. We'd be so happy and together like a big family. And that joy and togetherness and happiness would linger long after all the presents were opened and all of the cakes were eaten, and even after all the visiting guests had gone home. So of course we needed Christmas. And I prayed again, Lord, I don't want anything for Christmas. I only want that day. Still at the top of the stairs, we huddled together and we all prayed. Later that night, in our beds, I could hear my brothers and sisters still praying in theirs. My mom prayed, God will make a way. God will make a way. Over the next weeks before Christmas came, we were on our very best behavior, staying out of my father's way and helping Mama around the house with all of our chores, even before she could ask. God will make a way, she said. And little by little, slowly, that sinking sadness and fear began to fade. Little by little, all of the hard words and had softened, all the hard edges softened. We were alive again. We were alive again, just in time for Christmas. Mama hid presents all around the house and played her favorite Nat King Cole and Mahalia Jackson Christmas albums. And I hung stockings on the holiday fireplace and stood on my tippy toes on the tallest chair and put the angel tree topper in place. She was our special guardian angel. She lit up, spread out her wings, and began flying high above the decorated evergreen Christmas tree. And with our guardian angel in place, everything was ready. That night, we all slept so sound. And early the next morning, down the stairs on Christmas morning to a brand new candy fashion doll and stockings filled with apples and oranges and peppermints and even big round walnuts. All around me twinkled and sparkled like a magic castle. There were toys for all of my brothers and sisters. That night, Mama lined the buffet with confections of pure happiness. There were sweet potato pies, German chocolate cake, butter pound cake, and under the crystal glass cake dome was the triple layered white coconut cake, my absolute holiday favorite. It was so beautiful. I just stood there for a long time, just staring at it. And I could see that some of the coconut, like snow falling from trees, had fallen onto the cake plate. I gently lifted the cake dome with my finger, with no one watching, picked up all of the little coconut pieces that had fallen off of the cake. And suddenly, bright, shining golden light flashed right through the glass cake dome and into my eyes. I wasn't afraid because the light was so warm and golden and welcoming. And I could see right through the glass cake dome that this light was coming from the gold star. Now, it was a gold star that I had seen so many times before, but never like this. It was bright and shimmering and beautiful. And the most amazing thing of it all was that it was the same gold star capped on my father's front tooth. But it was so different. The shining lights from the Christmas tree and that gold star lit up his entire face whenever he smiled. And this gold star was strangely transformed. It wasn't the same gold star. He laughed and laughed with his whole body. It was a laughter I rarely heard as a child. But on that morning, it filled the house like soul music, so playful and natural. Of course, we were all drawn to the sound of it. That morning, that day, he treated Mama like queen for a day, and he gave extra special attention to all of the kids as he sat around the house, just happy and content to be with us. Now, this was so different from his everyday routine, leaving early in the morning and coming home to his dinner plate served, saved for him in the oven. But on that special day, my father was present with us. He carved the Christmas ham and praised Mama for a wonderful dinner. And then he sat right next to her on the sofa as all 10 kids played right there in the middle of the floor of Unit 570. On that most special day, so different, my father felt like extra long pink streamers on the handlebars of a brand new bike and a summer's day at the county fair. Oh, I was filled with so much Christmas cheer and coconut cake and curiosity about that gold star capped over my father's front tooth. So I squeezed right up in between him and Mama on the sofa and leaned into him to get an even closer look at it. I didn't know this gentle, playful side of my father, who insisted that we always call him by his first name, Isaac. Isaac was so unlike himself that day. Couldn't, I couldn't put my finger on just what was different, but something, everything was different. So when curiosity got the best of me, I looked straight up at him and said, "Are you today?" Mama nudged me and her eyes tried to shush me. Shh. The words had just come out before I knew it. My brothers and sisters quietly disappeared within themselves, waiting, listening, scared of what he might say and what he might do. Oh, why did I have to ruin it? Why did I have to ask any questions? In a flash, almost instantly, my father smiled with his entire face, jolly as I had ever seen him. His eyes, they twinkled and sparkled, and he flashed that gold star and said, "It's me. It's your father, Isaac. I'm Santa's helper. In fact, I'm his right-hand man, and I'm here today to make sure that all your wishes come true. And I'm going to do my best every day of the year." Complete silence. Only our eyes spoke the words that we could not say. Frozen right where we were. Only the guardian angel, flying high above the decorated evergreen Christmas tree, dared move. Flying high with her lights and wings outstretched, she cast an aura, a golden light down over us, over Mama, and over my brothers and sisters, over me, even as it was the same golden light as that of the gold star capped over my father's front tooth. Oh my. I I wasn't sure if it was a dream. Was I dreaming? Is this for real? Then, for the first time in a very long time, I heard the real true sound of my father's voice. Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas, everybody! This is our Merry Christmas. It wasn't a dream. My wish had come true. And I had to be the happiest kid in all of Los Angeles that Christmas Day. I quickly snuggled into them both, held unto them tight. This is the best day of my life. And I wish that every day in our house could be as happy as this one, with you and Mama and all of us. Every day, just like Christmas. My father smiled and nodded in promise. And so it was that day that an extra portion of peace on earth, goodwill to men, had found its way to Unit 570, giving us each just what we wanted and needed, the gift, the best gift in all the world, Christmas. Thank you.
Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Bron. A proper Christmas miracle. And the power of prayer, really. Oh, that was so lovely. And I
Thank
can't
you.
imagine Christmas with that many kids. No wonder he was a bit grumpy. Anyway,
Okay.
thank you, Doctor.
All
That
right.
was perfect. Now, I'm going to find out. Now, Ramya is here now from all the way from India.
Yes.
Are you
Hi.
ready to go and tell your story now?
Yes, Claire.
Lovely.
Can you
Okay.
hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you. So, perfect, Ramya. So let me just
Okay.
go and find your information. Uh,
Okay.
Hi, I'm so pleased you're here. There've been awful of you. And so, what time is it for you now? Because you're over in
It's 9:30 in the morning.
9:30. Oh, well, thank you
9:30
so much
a.m.
for persevering.
I am
Persevering.
very sorry because I had some technical lag. Otherwise, I would have joined in early. I'm very sorry.
No problem at all. We can just swap it around. So lovely, thank you. So let me just give you a bit of bio for everybody. Now, you're an acclaimed performance storyteller, an actor, and an educator. You're known for your panache of animated and theatrical storytelling style. And you've been trained in ancient art of Japanese street storytelling, kamishibai. Kamish, Kamishibai. God, I'm terrible. I'm really bad at things. Kamishibai, I think that's right.
You got it right.
And you now coach fellow artists, and you're the founder of the Indian Kamishibai Association. You also hold a master's degree in psychology. Honestly, had you fun time. So welcome, 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 welcome. So
Thank you
glad you're
so
with us.
much. Thank you.
Now, Ramya, tell us what's your favourite seasonal snack?
Um, uh, my father used to get this very delicious plum cake. It was very close to his workplace, and he used to get it for us during Christmas. And in India, it's Christmas it's a different kind of a celebration here for us. It's mostly holidays because it's just fun time for all of us here, and the weather is not at all as cold as what you are talking about. So it just used to be 1 or 2 days of holidays, and we used to love that because he used to get these plum cakes. And now the bakery is still there, so I still go get it during Christmas, and I enjoy it with my children. So that's my memory of Christmas.
Nice.
A
It's so
chocolate
lovely,
cake.
isn't it? The things that you have from your childhood that still carry on, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Even though you don't really like them in your childhood. Lovely. Okay, Ramya, we're going to get ready. And then you come to our virtual stage and you're going to tell us a story called Pinaka, the Sacred Bow. Sorry.
Yes.
Off you go.
Yes. Thank you. Good evening to all of you. I'm very happy to be here and share this beautiful story with you. This story comes from a revered ancient Indian epic called the Ramayana. It's a very sacred epic for all of us here in India. And I'm not going to tell you the story of Ramayana, though it's a story of Prince Ram and his quest to find his beloved wife Sita, who was abducted by the demon king Ravana. But this is the very beginning of that story and something very pivotal in that story of Ramayana. So here goes my story. Yes. Ta na 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 na, ta na 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 na, ta na 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 na. In India, we believe everything. There is a creator, there is a protector, and there is a destroyer. They're called the Trinity, the Brahma, the one who sits on the lotus. He's the creator. Vishnu, the one who protects, and Shiva, the one who destroys. Well, they are the guardians of everything. However, this story happened one day in the heaven, in the palace of Lord Brahma, when the creator, the protector, and the destroyer had an argument. The destroyer said, I was more powerful. The preserver said, no, no, I was more powerful. And they both went into an argument. Now, to decide who was more powerful in the two of them, was it the one who protects or was it the one who destroys? A great celestial weapon was created. The two divine deities held with them two celestial bows, the most strong and powerful bow of all times. And as they held and as they lifted the bow, just about to start the duel, a celestial voice said, this is going to be a total destruction. How can the two of you get into a war? Everything will be destroyed. You have to stop it. Well, they respected this voice and they kept the bow down. Well, the bow that was with Shiva was called Pinaka, and this bow was given to the king of Mithila for safekeeping. Oh, well, let me tell you, this was no ordinary bow. Hoi lesa, haisa, hoi lesa, hoi lesa, haisa, hoi lesa. This was no ordinary bow. It was the most powerful and the most strongest bow. 5,000 men were required to pull this bow while it was placed on an 8-wheeled cart. That is how heavy and strong and powerful Pinaka, the great bow, was. Well, I told you this was in the safekeeping of a king of Mithila called Janaka. One day the king was tilling his land. As he was tilling the land, suddenly his ox stopped, and there in the furrow he found a beautiful young child, a baby girl. He picked up the child. Ta na 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 na, ta na 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 na, ta na 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 na. He decided to raise this beautiful girl as his own. His wife and the king were so happy to be blessed with a baby girl, and they named her Sita, the daughter of the earth. Well, Let me tell you, this girl Sita was very, very intelligent, was beautiful, and was extremely strong too. One day, when she was playing with her friends, Tandani Tano, Tandani Tano, Tandani Tano, her ball rolled into the palace room where the great bow, the Pinaka, was kept. Sita effortlessly walked in, picked up the bow in one hand, took her toy, and walked out. Did you see that? Said, Did you see that? Said all the people who watched it. This was brought to the notice of the king, and who immediately thought, if my daughter Sita can pick up the bow in one hand, her suitor, the man who marries her, has to be somebody who not only picks this but also can string the bow. He decided. Well, Sita grew up from being a very young and beautiful girl, and she learned the art and science. She learned archery. She grew up to being a fine young princess. Her beauty, her respect for elders was a talk of town, and everybody loved Sita. Now she was of the marriageable age, and her father decided to get her married. Back in those times, there was something called a Swayamvara, meaning the girl can choose the man she marries if the man is able to pass the test of valor put forth by the father. King Janaka sent out word far and wide, and young and handsome prince from all over wanted to try their luck in winning the hand of Princess Sita. Well, the test of valor was lifting and stringing the Pinaka bow. People from far and wide came to the palace of King Janak, and the bow was kept in the center. Whoever could lift this bow and string it could marry his daughter, provided she approved of him. Ah, I can do it, said the first prince, who got up and tried his luck. He could not even move the bow. Well, the second prince got up and he said, I can move mountains, and this Pinaka is no match for me. And he tried to lift it, and he could not even pick up the bow. And the third prince laughed at the other two and said, You call yourself powerful? Look at me. I can lift the bow with my little finger. And no, he was disappointed too. Well, to the same palace, the young Prince Ram had come with his guru, Vishwamitra. The Prince of Ayodhya, Ram, happened to be in that palace, and his guru said, Prince Ram, why don't you try and lift the bow? He respected the words of his elders. He saluted to his guru, his master. He saluted to all the elders in the courtroom, and he saluted to the great bow Pinaka, and Ram effortlessly lifted the bow. He not only lifted the bow, and as he tried to string it, the bow broke into two, leaving out a loud sound. The prince has broken the bow, the Pinaka. People laughed, joyed, and rejoiced, and there was celebrations everywhere. Prince Ram from Ayodhya has lifted the bow, they said. Ta na 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 na, ta na Well, all this was being watched by the young princess Sita, who was sitting in her palace room. And as she was watching, she was overjoyed to see the handsome young prince of Ayodhya, Ram, who had lifted and broken the bow. She put down her eyes as an agreement in the matter of consent, and in her corner of her eye, she tried to catch the one glimpse of that handsome prince whom she was going to marry. She had already started weaving, dreaming about her future with this young prince. Celebrations had started in the palace of Mithila, and immediately word was sent to Ram's father, Dasharatha, who quickly came down with his 3 wives. Celebrations. Every street, every road, every lane was decorated. It was not just the wedding of the palace, it was the wedding of their own household. Priests from far and wide had come, chefs had come to make the best sweets and savories for the wedding. People sang and danced and rejoiced in preparation for the wedding of Prince Ram with Princess Sita. Ta na 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 na, ta na 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 na, ta na 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 na. Every street, every lane was decorated. There were flowers, there were garlands, and it was beautifully decorated. It was the time for the wedding. Ta na 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 na, ta na 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 na, ta na 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 na, ta na 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 na. Princess Sita sat there, young bride. Her heart was pounding as Prince Ram was sitting so close to her for the first time. She caught a glimpse of her husband. And there, sitting next to her, was Prince Ram, holding a garland in his hand, looking at his beautiful wife Sita, who sat next to him. And as they were planning for a beautiful future together, the family decided to get Sita's 3 sisters married to Ram's 3 brothers. It was a wedding in the family. People from far and wide came for the wedding. Ta-na na 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 na, ta-na na na na, ta-na na 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 na. Gods from far and wide came, showering blessings for the young couple. It was a beautiful wedding, and soon chariots were kept ready for Prince Ram to take his beautifully wedded wife towards Ayodhya to start a new life, a new journey together. Ta na 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 na, ta na 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 na. That brings me to the end of my story, the sacred bow Pinaka, which is a story from Ramayana, a sacred Indian epic. Thank you so much for listening to my story.
Thank you. Oh, that was a really mesmerizing story. I loved it. I loved, how you did it and worked with the pictures. It was really lovely. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for zooming in all the way from India.
Thank you so much. I'm so
That was
glad I was
lovely.
here.
Thank you, Ramya. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. Now we're going to move on to our 6th storyteller, who comes from the Storytellers of San Diego, down south, and he's OJ Mozon. So Honest John, or OJ as he's better known, is a native of Washington, D.C., although he's now in San Diego, and he loves telling stories to energize hope and encourage faith, love, and enlighten minds. He's a retired Navy chaplain, and he currently serves as Director of Oral Learning for a church planting mission, and thinks that storytelling is the essential heart of ministry. How lovely. Good evening, OJ.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
Splendidly wonderful.
Good, 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 good. Oh, it's lovely to see you. And tell us, what's your favorite seasonal snack?
A warm bowl of a baked macaroni and cheese casserole
Oh,
made with
nice.
extra sharp cheddar cheese and smoked Gouda. And the key thing is with the seashell macaroni, not that elbow, but the seashell macaroni.
Oh, okay. That sounds lovely.
Comfort food.
Who doesn't like a cheesy mac and cheese, eh? Lovely, lovely, lovely. Thank you. Right, then you're going to tell your story, and it's called
Yes.
Seasons of Light.
Yes.
The stage is yours, OJ.
Okay, thank you very much. I say that the smile of Jody was said to be contagious. Those big brown eyes, bright, you know, I think he had some of that sparkle, that angel sparkle that Angela talked about a little earlier. His eyes brightened, his teeth gleamed. And when he smiled at you, you just had to smile back. Jody always smiled except when he was around fire. Flames scared him to death. You see, he had been marked by fire, literally. I mean, from his elbow to his wrist, there was this ugly scar on his arm from the time when he and his big brother Willie went camping and the tent caught on fire. Now, Willie pulled Jody out in time. Joe's alive, but he does have that big scar, and he just is afraid of fire. So, when the new pastor asked Jody's parents, would they like to light the first candle of Advent at their church, Jody said, no. But Pastor Lee was pretty good. He knew Jody's story. And he said, Jody, explain to him that he would really help all the other members of the congregation prepare for the love, hope, joy, and peace that came with the Christ child if he would just get up there and help them light the candle. So his mother read the scripture, and his father held his hand firmly as Jody held on to the lighting stick to light that Advent wreath candle. And you know what? Pretty good. He liked that. And he said, I never thought of it that way before. What the pastor said was pretty good. So now Jody was not as afraid of fire, but he still didn't want to be too close to it too much. Now, during this time of early December, all the people in the neighborhood started decorating their home with lights, red, green, and white lights. But he knows that his friend Ezra, at his house, they had blue lights. And he also knows that it looked like Ezra had a little Advent candle in his window. So he asked Ezra what that was about. And Ezra said, no, it's not Advent. You see, we're Jewish, and we like the blue lights for Hanukkah. And that Advent wreath, we call it a menorah. It's an 9-stick candle holder. And then he went on and told them about the great Jewish Hebrews and how they fought that battle and they won and they reclaimed the temple. And then they found the lamp in the temple with just a little bit of oil and they lit the lamp. And somehow 8 days, the oil did not run out. Jody was amazed. When Ezra told him that story, he said, I never thought about it like that. So Jody stayed with Ezra for the rest of that day, and they would come the next day, and when they light the candle, and then they would play this game called Dreidel. It was a funny little spinny top game, and with these weird dice. But they played that together and they ate these things called latke, some kind of potato cakes. It was great. And then Jody told Ezra about what the Advent candles meant. And you know what Ezra said? Huh, I never thought about it like that before. So the two boys continued to have fun, and Jody was realizing fire doesn't always have to be a bad thing. And now, as it's getting very, 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 very close to Christmas, Jody was really excited because his big brother Willie, yeah, the same one who had pulled him out of the tent as a little boy and knew all about the scar, was coming home. Maybe he was going to be on leave. Now, Jody did live out on the East Coast, and Willie, the big brother, had been way out in California, and he was taking these courses up at Long Beach State, and he had heard about this new holiday, something that celebrated the culture and heritage of African Americans. And what Big Willie brought home for Jody was a candelabra. It was called a kinara. It had been carved out of wood, and there were red and black and green candles that went into this. And each day of Kwanzaa, there will be a different, really cool Swahili word like Kujikachalia, Umoja, Nia. Oh, words that mean faith, and community, and cooperative economics, and people getting along, and Umoja, all these things, and with candles. Jody was saying candles can be a very, very good, wonderful thing. So there's Advent, and there's Hanukkah, and there's Kwanzaa, and all show that flames don't just burn you and hurt you. They enlighten you. They warm you. And people can come together and sing songs and tell story and be kind to one another. Yes, this is my time of year, says Jody. This is what I want to do more and more of. Finding people who are in darkness, light a candle, and hear their stories, and see how we can all grow together. And that's Jody's story of enjoying the season of lights. And I hope wherever you are, wherever you live, and who's lived near you, you find a way to find joy and healing and hope in cooperative economics and faith. For we only live once, and live to the glory of God. God bless you real good.
Oh, thank you, OJ. What a fabulous, inclusive story that was. And I have to say, I could listen to you all day. Love your voice. Thank you. That was a perfect story.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really nice. Okay, now we're on to our final storyteller of the evening. I can't believe the evening's gone so quickly. So this storyteller comes from the Do Tell Story Swap, which is in Santa Rosa, just up the road from me, and that's Genevieve Franklin. Now, Genevieve first discovered the joy of personal narrative when she went to the Moth in 2017, about the same time I did, and she was really shocked to hear her name pull first out of the hat. And that same thing happened to me. It's utterly terrifying. Anyway, she draws on her experiences as an immigrant, an interpreter, a mediator, a cancer survivor, a caregiver, and a spiritual care provider. Gosh, many things. And on a short but very beautiful few years she spent with her sight impaired and chronically ill, magnificently loving partner, Dom. So welcome, Genevieve, to the stage.
Thank you, Claire. Since we did our tech check, I decided to put on the headset. Is that okay? Is there any interference?
No, you sound absolutely fine to me.
I thought it might be better. Okay, hi.
Hi, Genevieve. So tell us, what's your favorite snack?
Well, I've decided to change. I've been talking about my mother's chile con queso and relleno for a few years, and I'm going to switch it up. I think that I'm going back to some really good but vegetarian tamales and maybe some little cinnamon bizcochitos. Maybe throw in some hot chocolate caliente. Yay.
That's wonderful. I'm really hungry now.
And that's what it's served at Posadas, so really cool.
Oh, nice. Well, I just have sausage rolls and mince pies.
Well, there you are.
Right, lovely. Thank you, Genevieve. Now you're going to tell your story, which is called Journey to Tepeyac. Is that, did I say that?
Very perfectly said, my dear. Your Nahuatl is coming along just fine. Now, from time to time, I might have to cheat sheet because my Nahuatl is not really ingrained in my head. I've got a few terms I want to put in there, but here we go.
The stage is yours.
Tepeyac, perfect. I am an instrument. I speak for those whose voice might otherwise go unheard, and I listen for the heartbeat of those whose hope seems lost. I am an interpreter, a spiritual caregiver, a storyteller. In my day-to-day encounters in that, and in so many other ways, as a member of humankind, I often find myself before a single image that represents acts of faith that are more powerful than the mind can grasp. That icon is the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. She is seen in medals resting on the necks of mothers achingly aggrieved over the circumstances of their children. She is seen in tattoos of defendants standing powerless before magistrates. She is seen on laminated holy cards gripped by a patient racked with cancer. She permeates the small statues held tightly by victims of sexual assault. She is nestled inside the satin covers of caskets of young men brought down in drive-by shootings and graces the velvet capes of matadores. She ripples triumphantly on banners above marble altars in chandeliered cathedrals and humble chapels lit with candles. She is framed in gold and silver filigree in palace halls and casts her serene glance from paper prints thumbtacked to dingy hovel walls. She is the Queen of Mexico, Empress of the Americas, and mother of all of us, children of the earth. What is it that makes this particular representation so significant to people of all castes and from all ways of life today? And where does she come from? Let me tell you the story that was unfolded in the Nican Mopua, the narrative of the apparitions of Our Lady of Guadalupe, originally told in Nahuatl, the Aztec language, a century after the events happened, drawing on oral traditions that are still followed and passed from generation to generation today. Imagine that you are in the little hermitage of Juan Diego on Tepeyac Hill, listening to his story as I translate from the Nahuatl for you. My name is Cuauhtlahuatzin, eagle who speaks. I was born in 1474, just north of the sister cities of Lake Texcoco, Tlatelolco, the imposing market center, and Tenochtitlan, the capital of the kingdom of the Aztecs, with its double pyramid dedicated to the god of war, Huitzilopochtli, and the god of rain, Tlaloc. With thousands of human sacrifices that were made at the sixth iteration of that giant pyramid, I knew that we would be protected. Oh, don't be afraid. When one gives one's heart to the god of war, you are led into his kingdom to become a warrior against the forces of evil. Years passed, I married and raised milpa, which is farming plots, as a commoner in the area, honoring our deities especially Tonantzin, the goddess of fertility, the earth, and protector of women. She lived on the ridge of the hill called El Tepeyac. But who would imagine the signs that would come within 30 years of that? For 3 times, the earth shook in a single year. A giant ball of fire came across the skies after that. And then we who are children of the sun were terrorized when the moon began to swallow the sun. Or I should say rather, that is what it did. It started to swallow the sun, only spitting it back gradually with the passage of time. And then the earth began to swallow the moon. We felt it was a time of apocalypse, the end times. But little did we anticipate what was truly going to be difficult when in 1519, the impostors of Quetzalcoatl, our Lord, came in giant floating islands and destroyed our culture by tumbling down our temples, taking down our priests and governors, burning any writings of our theologies, and bringing with them something that these people from a place they called España referred to as the Red Plague, and we called the sticky, spready disease that killed thousands among us. Everything sacred to us, from the Great Pyramid down to the temple of Tonantzin, where I used to worship on Tepeyac, was destroyed. But there was a Tlateochihualisli in this, a blessing. For some Franciscan friars came to try to temper the hand of the invaders and stop their murderous pillaging. They also brought with them new deities for us to worship. And so we began to have some hope. With my family, I was baptized soon after that, and I began to go 6 miles away to the church where the friars were to receive instruction and go to Mass. And it is on that kind of pilgrimage that my story is based. One day at dawn, as I was traveling to the church, I heard a beautiful sound. It was like nothing I had ever heard before. Incredibly beautiful birds must have been singing. And as I turned up to hear where the sound was coming from, the hill itself seemed to respond in even more celestial tones. I went up to the top of the hill, and there was a woman who was resplendent, an incredible image, with light surrounding her, a beautiful blue shawl with stars on it. She stood on the moon with an angel at her feet. The bushes around her glittered as if they were gold, turquoise, and jade. She said, Juanito, where are you going? I'm going for instruction to the church, as we have been taught, dear lady. And she said, Juanito, I would like you to do something when you go. Go and visit the bishop there and tell him, I am the Holy Mother of God. I am here to be protectors and refuge for all who come and abide in me. I want a temple to be built on this spot. With that, I went and got to the village. After Mass, I sought out the bishop. They didn't want to let me in. Who was I to see the bishop? But because of my persistence, I was let in, and I conveyed the message to the bishop. He listened attentively enough, but I knew he didn't believe me. And he said, I will take your message into consideration and feel free to come back. I went back, and on the way back again, went up to the hill of Tepeyac, and there was the beautiful lady I told her what had happened, and she said, "You must go back." I said, "But lady, why don't you send someone who has some respectability, someone they're going to believe? This is going to be futile." She said, "You must go back." I said, "Surely you have other people that would be better." She said, "I have plenty of people that I could send, but this has to be done by you." And so I said, "Our Lady, I will gladly go back. I will report back after I come back from Sunday Mass." So on Sunday, I went back and again sought to see the bishop. And that time he asked me all sorts of questions. He wanted to know what she looked like, where she was, what she said. And I reported back faithfully. And he said, "Well, Juan Diego, this is all well and fine, but this is serious business. I need a sign." So I went back up the hill to Our Lady of Tepeyac, and she was waiting for me. I said, "They want a sign." And she said, "They will have a sign. Be patient." I was supposed to go back on Monday, but my uncle had gotten sick. So I didn't go back until Tuesday. But on Tuesday, I had to go find a priest for my uncle who was at the verge of death. And so I tried to escape by going around the hill so that I wouldn't draw the attention of the lady and get further delayed. But guess what? She came down to where I was trying to avoid her. And she said, "Juanito, what's going on? Are you ashamed? Has someone hurt you? Are you scared? Why are you not coming up the hill?" I explained that my uncle was very, very ill and I had to find a priest to give him last rites. And she said, Don't worry about his illness, and worry not about illnesses yourself." She says, "I am here to protect and love you, for are you not my child, and am I not your mother?" So I said, "But Our Lady, the bishop still is going to want a sign." And she said, "Juan Diego, go up to the top of the hill right now and pick whatever flowers you find." I went to the top of the hill, and there was the most incredible display of roses of Castilla, which would not be blooming in December among the crags and the thorns and the bristles. And I gathered them up in my tilma, my shawl, and brought them down to where Our Lady was. She took each one and touched it and put it back in my tilma and said, "Now you are to go directly to the bishop and do not show anybody what you have in your tilma. I want you to go to the bishop and tell him, 'Here I have the sign that you asked Our Lady, my Amma, for.'" I went back to the bishop's place, and the guards did not want to let me in. The servants refused to even acknowledge me, but they saw that I would not give up. I was going nowhere until I saw the bishop. I knew that I had these beautiful roses in my tilma for him and that they came from Our Lady. So they were just so curious as to what I was having, and afraid that they might beat me up in order to get a look, I just uncovered my tilma a little tiny bit. When they saw the roses, they wanted to pluck them out. 1, 2, 3, they tried 3 times. But every time they tried, instead of remaining as real roses, the roses became painted roses. So not only did they give up, but they were astonished, and they ran to tell the bishop that indeed there was good reason for him to give me yet another audience. I went before the bishop, I knelt down, and I said, "Your Holiness, I come with what you have requested. Our Blessed Mother has said that she has given you this sign so that you might build a temple on the spot where she has indicated." And with that, I let my tilma down, and the roses fell on the ground. And as that happened, the image of our beautiful, precious Lady of Guadalupe that I had seen on the map was emblazoned, painted on my tilma with a paint that has never been known to exist in this world. Her serene look overwhelmed the bishop and all of the people who were there, who felt bad for having doubted what I had told them before. And there the bishop committed to looking at the place where Our Lady had appeared to me and to build a temple to her. And that is how the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe became known as the refuge of people, not only in Mexico, but throughout the world. Her image dances still off the mirrors of truckers and bus drivers, taxis and limousines. She rides painted on the crates of farmers delivering produce and the truck panels of laborers going to the field. She is seen on the sides of botellones holding water, jars filled with beans and rice, and boxes overflowing with tomatoes and peppers. She plays on the cotton frocks of children and follows soccer games from the rims of baseball caps. She rumbles by full size from the back of 18-wheelers lit with Christmas lights year-round, and demurely guards souls from tiny tin and glass altars that rest on splintered window shields. Window sills. She is knit into socks and imprinted onto face masks, emblazoned on rhinestone-studded t-shirts and down the sides of cotton pants. She is still carried in miles-long processions on the 12th of December throughout Mexico and the Southern Americas, and in the Revolution of 1912 was found on the standard of the rebels themselves, even though they were against the institutionalized church. All over the world on the 12th of December, which is actually the equinox, the winter solstice in the Julian calendar, people march in processions to honor Our Lady of Guadalupe, our mother. She is the Queen of Mexico, Empress of the Americas, and Mother of all of us, children of the earth. She is seen in our hearts.
Lovely. Thank you, Genevieve. That
Thank
was
you.
so beautiful, and I loved all the detail. Gosh, I've learned so much tonight. It's been very educational as well as really fascinating to watch. Thank you. Listen, I
Thank
say,
you.
and watch and listen. Thank you. Now, I think what we're going to do, that's the end of our storytelling, but I want to bring all the storytellers on one at a time until we get us all there. And while I do, can everyone unmute and just give them plenty of love and appreciation, because you've all been so polite, not interrupting when we've been talking. So that now's the time you can unmute and just cheer and shout. So let's bring first Dana Sherry.
Thank you, everybody.
Mm.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Great.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
We've got
Perfectly wonderful.
Dana Sherry. We're going to bring her back on. We're going to bring back on Angela Lloyd. Are you right with doing this, Judy? Yes, lovely. Dana, hi. Dana, so tell us, have you got, what else have you got coming up that you'd like to talk about?
Let's see, things are relatively slow for me these days, but on the fourth Sunday of every month, I'm telling a saint story at St. Columba Church in Oakland. So anyone will be welcome to join if they would like to hear.
Just down the road. Lovely. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Dana. And let's bring up Angela Lloyd. Hi, Angela.
Hello.
What have you got coming up? We're so busy.
Mostly I'm doing crochet.
Oh,
Knitting holiday. Time to stay home.
very lovely.
Keep your hands busy.
I can't sew on a button, so that's like a superpower to me. Lovely.
No, it's lovely to be here tonight. I love to everybody. Loved hearing everyone. We've been all around the world and back again.
Literally, haven't we? Yes.
Wonderful.
Okay,
Thank
let's bring
you.
on Camille. Is Camille coming up to the stage now? Hi, Camille. And what have you got coming up? Thank you for your story.
Nothing. I need to lose weight. It's what I need to do.
I hear you. I so hear you. Lovely. And then who? Brenda. Let's bring Brenda back up. Brenda Haynes. Hi, Brenda. And what have you got coming up?
Hello. For telling a story down in LA in February, we have a stage play coming up that we're working on, four tellers and myself. And it's called, I think this is the final name of, it's called the school's final bell.
Oh, okay.
And so it's going to be a really great show. It's on a stage play. and it's going to be fun.
Does sound fun. Okay, and
Right.
then Ramya Srinidhi, let's bring you back onto the stage. Hi, Ramya, how are you? Thank you for your beautiful story. And what have you got coming up?
Hi everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I just thought I'd let you know that as a part of the Indian Kamishibai Association, we're having wonderful events that's going on. So we are a page on Facebook. Do check us out. And we have events that we're doing currently. We're celebrating the World Kamishibai Day. So we're sharing stories of love, sharing, and giving across. So that's about it. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ramya. And OJ, let's bring OJ back. Hi, OJ. And have you got anything coming up?
Yes. Storytellers of San Diego will be doing a storytelling institute at the Coronado Library in January and February. And I'll be teaching one of those classes there. And then the Black Storytellers of San Diego, our calendar is filling up for a lot of different events for Black History Month.
Perfect.
And yeah.
Perfect. Okay, lovely. And then last but not least, Genevieve Franklin. Genevieve, what have you got coming up?
Well, curiously, I was a little slammed to get this story under my belt because I'm also preparing a retreat for January 6th.
Right.
So it's called Resting in the Spirit While Going Through Change.
Right. Interesting. Well, thank you. Everybody unmute and give them all a huge round of applause. Well done, everybody.
Yay.
Thank
All
you.
right.
They're superb. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was
Thank you.
Before
truly
we leave,
exquisite.
Thank
what I
you.
would like to do is bring Ed Lewis onto the stage because he's the one this would not be happening without for Ed. Hi, Ed, how are you?
Hi, good to see you guys.
Good. It was such a
So
lovely
I hope you can hear me on my computer. I just want in January we are doing tall tales. So if you know anybody or anyone in your swap groups that have a tall tale to share, we have 3 people so far. We have Toby Anderson from the Asian Art Museum, Lorena Bergqvist from Sweden, who I visited over that she introduced me, and she's moving back to the States now after living there for many years. But she's a fantastic storyteller. And Manuel Camacho, who told stories at the Sacramento Storytellers Guild at our event on Saturday. He's a new storyteller there, but he's a Spanish teacher at Delta College and has his own little storytelling group there. So if you know of anyone that likes to tell tall tales, tell your story swap leader. I'll be sending a message to all the story swap leaders to look for more storytellers.
And
So,
also,
thank you.
you can go to the Storytelling Association of California website, storysac with 2 A's .org. It's org, doesn't it? Yes. Yeah, Judy just put it in the chat. Go there, and then you can find all the details if you want to tell, because you do get paid. So it's, actually get some money for a change. So, this was a lovely evening, and I just want to thank all our storytellers again. Thank you, Ed, for sorting out. Thank you for Judy for being a fabulous, flawless tech host. And I think we'll stop the recording now. So thank you so much for coming. And then the rest of us can just stay and have a chat and just wish everybody well for the last few minutes before we leave.